Okay, Virgo, come closer. This one is messy and uncomfortable and maybe a little vindicating if you've been wondering why someone suddenly went ghost on you. What I'm picking up isn't pretty. Someone who was in your life has been running their mouth about you, saying things that weren't true, mm, spinning narratives that painted you in terrible light. And now they're hiding because their lies just caught up with them in the worst possible way. They told the wrong person, said the wrong thing to someone who actually knows you, or someone who did their own investigation, or someone who just called bullshit loud enough that the whole story unraveled. So let's unpack what happens when someone's deception about you becomes their own trap. This is going to be revealing. Okay, Virgo, let's get started. Someone who's been conspicuously absent from your life isn't staying away because they're over you or because they've moved on or because they're thriving without you. They're staying away because they're hiding, because they got caught in a lie they told about you and now they can't face you without that lie sitting between you like third person in the room. And the specific way they got caught makes their position even worse. They didn't just get exposed to you directly, where they could maybe spin it or apologize privately or minimize the damage. They got exposed to someone else, someone whose opinion they care about, someone who has influence in circles that matter to them, someone who now knows they're a liar and is questioning everything else they've said. Let me describe what this specific kind of exposure looks like and why it creates the particular shame that's keeping them at distance. Maybe they've been telling people you're crazy, unstable, dramatic. The problem in whatever conflict existed between you, they've been positioning themselves as victim or voice of reason while casting you as villain or chaos agent. They've built entire narrative around your supposed flaws, your alleged behavior, things you did that range from exaggerated to completely fabricated. And people believed them, or at least some people did, because they told the story convincingly, with just enough detail to sound credible, with just enough emotion to seem genuine. But then they told that story to someone who actually knows you, someone who's seen how you operate, who's witnessed your character firsthand, who has their own data about who you are that directly contradicts the narrative they were selling. And that person didn't just quietly disbelieve, they challenged it. They said, that doesn't sound like them at all, or I've never seen them behave that way, or are you sure that's what happened because I heard a completely different version? And suddenly the liar had to defend their story to someone who wasn't automatically accepting it, had to provide details they couldn't provide because the details don't exist, had to maintain consistency in a narrative that was fiction to begin with and therefore has no internal logic to maintain. Some people are skilled liars until they encounter someone who asks follow up questions, until they have to elaborate on fabrications they made up in the moment without thinking through how those fabrications would hold up under scrutiny. And when that scrutiny arrives, the whole construction collapses. Or maybe they didn't tell the lie to someone who knows you. They told it to someone who decided to verify, someone who doesn't just accept stories at face value, someone who does their own investigation, asks around, checks facts before forming opinions. And that investigation revealed inconsistencies, revealed that Other people have completely different accounts of the same events. Revealed that the liar has pattern of distorting truth to make themselves look better and others look worse. Let's pause here. This reflection invites you to consider, has someone's sudden distance from you felt less like moving on and more like avoiding something? Maybe you've noticed they won't be in same spaces as you. They decline invitations to events if you're attending. They leave gatherings early if you arrive. They've created elaborate system of avoidance that goes beyond normal we're not friends anymore distance into active evasion. That's not indifference. That's guilt. That's someone who can't look at you because looking at you reminds them of what they said about you. And what they said about you is now known to be lies by people whose opinions they can't afford to lose. Or you've noticed they've gone completely silent on social media, stopped posting, stopped engaging, basically disappeared from digital spaces where you both exist. That's not them living their best life offline. That's them hiding because they can't maintain the image they were projecting now that their credibility is compromised. Or mutual friends have gotten weird. They won't quite meet your eye. They seem uncomfortable in conversations about this person. They change subject when certain topics come up. That discomfort is them knowing something they're not telling you specifically. They know this person lied about you, and they're caught between loyalty to the liar and their own sense of what's right. This reflection invites you to consider, have mutual friends been acting strangely around you in ways that suggest they know something you don't? There's something specific about the phrase wrong person that makes this situation particularly devastating for the liar. Wrong person doesn't just mean someone who didn't believe them, it means someone whose disbelief has consequences. Someone who has power, influence, relationships, or information that can damage the liar's position socially, professionally, or personally. Maybe wrong person is someone in position of authority, boss, teacher, community leader, someone whose opinion shapes how others see you both. And now that person knows the liar can't be trusted, which doesn't just affect how they view the past situation, it affects how they'll view everything going forward. Or wrong person is someone who's connected to networks the liar needs access to, someone who can close doors the liar was trying to walk through, someone whose endorsement or recommendation or even just neutral presence the liar was counting on and now won't get because trust is broken. Or wrong person is someone the liar was trying to impress or attract, romantic interest, potential friend, person whose approval they wanted. And now that person sees them as manipulative liar instead of credible narrator, which destroys whatever image they were trying to cultivate. The consequences aren't just about you anymore, they're about the liar's entire social position being compromised because they revealed themselves as untrustworthy to someone who matters in ways that affect their access, their reputation, their future opportunities. Some lies are contained. They damage one relationship but don't spread beyond that. But lies told to wrong person metastasize. They spread through networks. They change how multiple people see the liar. They create reputation damage that's hard to repair because you can't unring a bell once it's been rung. And that's why they're hiding. Not because they feel bad about lying necessarily, though some do, but because facing you means facing the evidence of their dishonesty in human form. Means risk of you saying something publicly that confirms what people are already suspecting. Means possibility of confrontation they're not prepared to handle because they can't defend lies that have already been exposed. This reflection invites you to consider, if you confronted them directly about the lies, would they admit it or double down? Let me describe what you might be feeling right now as you realize what's been happening behind your back. Because the emotional response to discovering you've been lied about is complex and often contradictory. There's probably anger, righteous anger, that someone would distort your character, damage your reputation, tell stories about you that aren't true to people who don't know you well enough to immediately recognize the distortion. That anger is valid. Someone took liberties with your story that they had no right to take. They made you into character in narrative they were controlling, and that's violation even if the damage turns out to be limited. But there might also be vindication satisfaction that they got caught, that their deception didn't go unnoticed or unchallenged, that someone saw through it and held them accountable in ways you couldn't do yourself without seeming defensive or petty. Sometimes the best justice is someone else seeing what you already knew, that the person presenting as victim or voice of reason is actually a manipulator whose stories can't withstand scrutiny. And there might be hurt underneath the anger and vindication hurt, that someone you trusted or cared about, or at least coexisted with peacefully, would say things designed to damage you, would choose their own image management over basic honesty, would sacrifice your reputation to preserve or enhance their own. That hurt is valid too, even if you didn't like them, even if the relationship was already compromised. Discovering active betrayal still stings because humans generally prefer to believe others will be at least neutral about them, even when they're not positive. Some people want revenge when they discover they've been lied about. They want to confront publicly, expose completely, make sure everyone knows the truth, and the liar suffers appropriate consequences. And that impulse is understandable. Why should the liar get to hide while you live with the residue of their lies? But revenge keeps you entangled, keeps you focused on them instead of on your own life, keeps you operating from their level instead of rising above it. This reflection invites you to consider, what would feel like appropriate justice for someone lying about you, public exposure, private confrontation, or just letting natural consequences play out. There's something important about what you do or don't do with the knowledge that they lied and got caught, because your response will determine whether this becomes a chapter that closes or wound that stays open. You could confront them directly, demand accountability, force them to face what they did, and own it explicitly. That might bring closure through direct confrontation, might feel satisfying to make them squirm, might be necessary for your own sense of having stood up for yourself. But it also might give them opportunity to spin new lies, play victim again, claim you're harassing or obsessing or can't let go. Some people are so committed to their narratives that confrontation just gives them material for next version of the story where they're being persecuted by the person they tried to handle with grace. Or you could go public, tell your side, lay out the facts, make sure everyone who heard their lies also hears your truth. That might feel like setting records straight, might prevent future damage from their distortions, might warn others about their pattern of dishonesty, but it also might make you look defensive or petty or unable to move on, depending on how you do it and how receptive your audience is. And it keeps you focused on them, on countering their narrative, instead of focused on building your own life independent of their bullshit. Or you could do nothing. Let their exposed lies speak for themselves. Let the people who matter draw their own conclusions based on their direct experience with you versus the stories they were told. Trust that character reveals itself over time and that you don't need to defend yourself to people who are willing to believe lies without verification. This approach requires confidence that your actual character will speak louder than their distortions, requires trusting that people with discernment will eventually see truth regardless of what lies were told, requires being okay with some people maybe never knowing the full story because you chose dignity over defense. There's no universally right answer. Different situations call for different responses. But the question to ask yourself is, what response allows you to move forward most fully? Not what punishes them most effectively, but what frees you most completely. Because staying focused on their lies and their consequences keeps you bound to them energetically, even when you're physically separated. And the goal isn't to win against them, it's to be free of them. This reflection invites you to consider, what would freedom from this person and their lies actually look like for you? Let me address what happens next in the practical sense, because them staying away creates space, but it doesn't necessarily create resolution. If you share social circles, professional spaces, or mutual connections, their absence creates weird void that everyone can feel but might not understand. People might ask you what happened, why you two aren't speaking, whether there's tension, and you have to decide how much to say. Do you protect their reputation by being vague, or do you tell the truth about what they did? Protecting their reputation when they didn't protect yours might feel like taking high road, but it might also feel like complicity in their deception, like you're helping them hide the consequences of their choices, like you're prioritizing social comfort over your own vindication. But telling the truth might feel like gossip or retaliation, especially if you can't prove what they said because the lies were verbal and the exposure was private. You end up in he said, she said situation that doesn't serve anyone. The middle path might be simply saying, they said things about me that weren't true, and when that became known, they chose distance over accountability. That's factual without being detailed. It gives context without requiring you to relitigate the entire situation. It allows people to draw their own conclusions without you having to perform as prosecutor. Or maybe you say nothing at all. Just let the distance exist without explanation. Let people wonder. Let the mystery sit there as its own answer, because people who stay away without explanation are usually people with something to hide. Over time, one of two things will happen. Either they'll realize hiding is unsustainable and they'll attempt some kind of reconciliation or explanation or apology, or they'll commit to permanent distance and slowly fade from all shared spaces until you no longer occupy the same social ecosystem. If they attempt reconciliation, you'll have to decide whether you're interested in rebuilding trust with someone who proved themselves untrustworthy, whether their accountability is sufficient, whether having them in your life in any capacity serves you or just creates ongoing vulnerability to future betrayal. If they commit to distance, you'll have to decide whether you're okay with never getting direct acknowledgement of what they did, whether you can close that chapter without their participation in the closing, whether their absence is enough of a consequence, or whether you need more explicit justice. Neither path is easier. Both require you to make peace with imperfect resolution. You remain in complete control of how you navigate this situation. You can confront or ignore, expose or rise above, demand accountability, or simply move forward without it. All valid, all your choice. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice reading this has confirmed suspicions you've had about why someone went silent. Maybe anger rising about the lies. Maybe relief that they got caught. Maybe uncertainty about what to do with this information now that you have it. Whatever you're feeling, honor it. Take what resonates, softly release the rest. Trust yourself. Before we close, I want to ask you something. If someone lied about you to others and then went silent when they got caught, would you want direct confrontation or would their distance be enough? Drop your honest response in the comments. And this, have you ever been lied about? And if so, did confronting it or ignoring it serve you better? They are staying away from you because they lied about you to the wrong person is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than. And now they're trapped between the version of events they told and the truth that got exposed, between the image they were maintaining and the reality that someone revealed. Their distance is admission. Their hiding is confession. Their avoidance is acknowledgement that they can't face you now, that their credibility is compromised. Not eventually, right now, currently hiding. Trust yourself with this trust that you don't need to chase accountability from someone who's already experiencing consequences. Trust that their lies catching up with them is its own justice. Trust that you can move forward without their admission, without their apology, without their participation in your closure. See you in the next one. And listen, people who lie about you to wrong person end up exposing themselves more than they expose you. Let that be enough. Stay dignified. Stay free. Stay focused on your truth. Their lies are their problem. Don't make them yours. Take care.